And we are live. Brian is back from your birthday.
Yep.
How is it? What are you like 17, 18 now or?
I wish. We're going to stick to that. I convinced some of my employees this last week I was over 40 and they believed me. So,
Oh, that's tough. Oof. Well, before we get going, obviously, the fantasy world was kind of rocked with the news this weekend for Mike Tags. It's a huge loss for the community, but obviously for his family, for his wife and his young kids. And, it's just such a terrible thing for, he's so young. So,
yeah, that picture that his wife shared on Twitter of his son wearing his glasses and hat, man, that broke me. It was rough.
Yeah. Yep. It was. So, there's obviously the GoFundMe out there for him that, if you have the ability to and the funds, please share and do what you can to help out that family. But not everyone has those means, or if you can't, just in the spirit of Tags, go out of your way and do something kind for someone. Whether it's here on the Twitter world or out in, real life. It's so important to be kind. And, that's something that I think more than anything, we know Tags for the primer and stuff, but like we really seem to know him because he went out of his way to be kind to people and listen to people and make people feel good. So, in the honor of Tags, go out and do something kind. I think that'd be a great way to really honor his legacy.
Yeah, I agree. He was always someone that he didn't care about your follower count. He always engaged and always assumed positive intent and was just an overall great guy. So we lost a great positive influence on this in the fantasy Twitter. It's going to be missed.
Yep. And honor Tags, we're also here to talk fantasy. And frankly, I think more than anything, he'd want that too. So with that said, we're gonna get this going here. And going to start the show here with 2 week in a row, the alumni, my boy, Mikey Dubs. Mike Williams is just absolutely crushing it right now. Right, the truthers are finally vindicated for sticking by him for 2 years now. It was up and down, but he started the season with 2 really awesome weeks, and now all of a sudden, with his best week yet, 9 targets, 7 receptions, 122 yards, 2 touchdowns. Right? The second one wins the game. He currently has a 24.6 target share. And, last week I talked about, he could be a back end running wide receiver 1, but anything really top 24, you'd be happy based off his ADP. Well, I think we've seen now with his role in that offense, he really is looking like a back end wide receiver 1. But if he's going to get those 10 targets a game, 8 to 10 a game, he's going to have a good floor, a solid floor, with obviously the boom weeks that we have. So he's really become a safe wide receiver with massive boom appeal.
Yeah, I got Mike Williams everywhere this offseason, and man, I am so happy that that's just booming. But my next guy is Big Ben Roethlisberger. Man, is this guy dust. It was hard to watch this last weekend, pretty much this whole season. There's some fantastic tweets going around and just videos of him. He has no mobility. And my favorite stat, my favorite stat is that he had 4 sacks this last weekend and wasn't blitzed a single time. The man just is horrific. He has a career low touchdown percentage at 2.3% right now. I know it's only 3 weeks. That's a small sample size, but that it's worrisome. That offense goes through him, and he's just not passing down the field at all. Currently he has 6.9 intended air yards per attempt, which means he's not throwing the ball anywhere. Yeah. And I remember I just remember the good old days when he would just pass it down the field with Antonio Brown, and he would just loft that ball up, and that's not there anymore. And just to show that he is just passing it close to the line of scrimmage, Najee Harris had 19 targets this last week. 19. Yeah. So yeah, Big Ben, I think we have to be worried about this offense going forward. And I'd be very surprised if he finishes the season as their starter.
Yeah, I mean, 19 is insane. So, moving forward to the next guy here, really, actually, it's really twosome. So Cooper Kupp, Robert Woods, right? That LA offense. So first of all, obviously Cooper Kupp, woo, big so far, but it's not sustainable. So 38.2% target share is amazing. Um, he's obviously going to come back down to earth. There's just too much to come down to. But with that said, like if you settle for 25% market share for Cooper Kupp, he's going to produce really, really awesome numbers. And I think more than anything, even though some of those counting stats, so the receptions and the yards, will come back down to earth, the connection that he and Stafford have, I think, is going to keep those touchdown numbers, looking really good throughout the whole season. So even when some of it comes back down to earth, I think those touchdowns honestly will continue to do really well. And then Robert Woods. So don't panic. Please stop panicking. 23.6 target share. I get it. He's 4, 9, and 6 targets, so it's not like fantastic. His catch rate is lower. He's much lower than normal. I think honestly, what we're seeing is a mix of a couple of things. One, Stafford and Kupp already had a really strong connection before the season. So the season has started, new team, that's there. Woods is getting looks. He's just their connection isn't solidified yet. So it's going to be fine. He's going to do okay. It's just starting out really slow. And I think this was probably the first major year that we had really, really high expectations for Robert Woods. And now he's not meeting it. And all of a sudden, right, it's kind of an issue. So if anyone in the league is panicking even a tiny bit, in redraft or dynasty, I would look into possibly trying to acquire Robert Woods for even a 5% discount, because he's going to produce, he's going to do well.
Yeah, he seems like someone that was always undervalued, and this is the year that we finally were talking about Robert Woods, and he's missing a little bit. So my next person is DJ Moore. He has nearly a 29% target share in an extremely high passing volume offense. They already have over 100 passing attempts in that Carolina offense already. He's not the DJ Moore we've seen the last few seasons, though, where I think there was that deep ball threat where he was going deep and catching long passes, because his ADOT has actually decreased from the last few seasons. And he's catching the ball, I think, more in traffic. His yards after catch is also down a little bit, too. So I'm not expecting – I think his big playability has decreased, but his volume is there. I think at the end of the season, we're going to be looking at him as just a volume hog that is going to be probably a top 10 wide receiver finishing the year. The one thing that does worry me is the touchdowns just aren't there. So I think that targets and receptions, especially in PPR, having a lot of receptions can make up for a bad touchdown percent. But he should hopefully rebound with that, but I'm not sure if that's a Sam Darnold issue or what it is, because I haven't had the hardest and most difficult defenses going against them, or they haven't gone against the most difficult defenses the last 3 weeks. But yeah, I think DJ Moore looks legit now.
And unfortunately, Robbie Anderson seems to have died. So
yeah, and I think that's the offense just isn't pushing the ball down the field. We're seeing that with DJ Moore. But yeah, RIP Robbie Anderson.
That one hurt. I really thought he was going to continue it, but that's not my own thing. Anyways, next up, Brandin Cooks. So another guy actually that we spoke about, I spoke about last week. And my message last week was don't panic, right? In 2 quarters, Davis Mills targeted him 10 times. Well, but in the 4 quarters this week, it was 11 times. So we have 21 targets in 6 quarters. And we just went for 9 for 122. The biggest thing is, the touchdowns are going to be hard to come by in that offense as long as Davis Mills is under center. That's really what it looks like. You got to kind of hope that Tyrod comes back sooner rather than later. And I honestly forget his diagnosis at this point. But he's talking about target share and target hog of DJ Moore, Brandin Cooks is unbelievable. He legitimately could push for the end of the season as the target leader in wide receivers, because I was actually just showing Brian. I took a screenshot of the Houston Texans, Pro Football Reference page, and it's hysterical to look at because it's Cook with like 32 targets, and the next closest person has 6. So it's a joke of how it's spread out. Brandin Cooks, don't fear him. Continue to play him. Literally, the worst thing is like what could happen is teams just completely blanket him with 2 people every play because there's no one else. But as long as Mills is there, Cooks is going to get tons of targets.
Yeah, it's kind of ridiculous that he's actually able to be as productive when they know that the ball is going to him. But
yeah,
I've always said a talent is going to get the ball, and so he's someone that's talented enough that he's going to get it.
Yeah.
My next 2 guys are my Denver Broncos running backs, Javonte Williams and Melvin Gordon. So we've pretty much seen an even split. I think that's kind of what we expected. Javonte has 39 rushes and 6 targets, and Melvin Gordon has 42 rushes and 7 targets. They're both playing close to 50%. Javonte is actually yet to go over playing 50% of offensive snaps. Melvin Gordon's been hovering between 50 and 60%. It's actually moved more towards every game. Melvin Gordon has actually gotten more rushes and targets, but I think that's just the variance in how the games have gone. But it really just looks like an even split, which I don't think should be any surprise to anyone. Just with Denver and how Lindsey and Gordon split, I'm not sure that Javonte is going to be the breakout guy everyone was hoping for at the end of the season. I think it's still a possibility. My big possibility is I think it's worth trading for Melvin Gordon if you can get him kind of cheap, just because if Javonte goes down, I think Melvin Gordon has league-winning upside. Brad, our O-line guy, says that Denver has one of the best offensive lines for rushing. So if one of these guys goes down, I think if someone gets a lion's share of the rushes and opportunities here, it could be a game or a league-winning player.
Yeah, and actually to jump in really quick, that's what I keep, even before the season, I talked about, like, just think of Melvin Gordon and Phillip Lindsay last year, and that's kind of what you'll get with Javonte, and Melvin this year, and that's what we've seen so far. And like, it was viable. They had really good weeks, but more than anything, it could be frustrating because you're like, if just one of these guys had the full backfield to themselves, they could they're top 5 possibly, or even league winning, overall. So they're going to stay good as a duo. They just won't be as great as they could be if they were solos.
It's like what we're seeing. It's like what we're seeing tonight with Zeke and Pollard, that they're productive by themselves, but it's frustrating. You just want one guy. And then next is Kirk Cousins. I actually have a weirdly large amount of Kirk Cousins because I missed on all my quarterbacks this season. So my fantasy teams are doing great. This man is balling this season. He's averaging 7 more attempts per game than he did last season, but his touchdown percent is the same. So he's at 6.7% this season. Last season at 6.8, which I think means that we're probably not going to see too much regression. I think we might see a little bit as it become a little bit more run heavy. We know Dalvin Cook wasn't playing this last weekend, but Madison still went off. His completion percentage is ridiculous. He's being efficient as crazy as can be, 74%. And he's not going to be a fantastic quarterback, no rushing upside, but he does have 3 fantastic receivers and Jefferson, Thielen, and Cook out of the backfield. So I think he's going to continue to be productive.
Yep, he's very much the not sexy player, but seems to do well. Yep. So with second half starting, just the quick hitters to end our show. Cole Kmet, I've given up on. Sorry, bye. Jameis Winston, my favorite stat. He has a touchdown every 55 yards passing. Obviously, that's not going to keep. He can't have 11% TD share, or else that would be amazing. But as the yards and stuff go up, the touchdowns will go down, so it should balance out. Still love that look for him. Derrick Henry, back to 3 targets this week. Right, that's kind of that. Not really sure if there's that higher trend. Again, take his PPR work as a bonus and just soak it in. Sam Darnold, just aka Jimmy Neutron, passing a ton, kind of like Brian talked about, that the TD rate is tough. Allen Robinson, he's moved into the flex bench spot until you see anything productive. But right now, he's not QB proof. And honestly, I think it's more of he's not Matt Nagy proof. So that's kind of the issue. Matt Ryan could have been trash with Big Ben up in the main show. Ridley down, Pitts down. Cordell Patterson, by the way, 153 receiving yards. Second on his team. Second in Atlanta, 153 is crazy. And Tyler Conklin, 4-4, 8 targets, 69 of the year. The backup tight end is really a halfback blocker. Chris Herndon doesn't play, so Conklin could be a viable late end TD tight end streamer if you need somebody. With Osborne being there, Herndon has no value. Conklin, a little bit of value. But there you go. There's some quick hitters at the end. Also have LOL Gabe Davis truthers written in the notes. Only has 6 targets. Huh. Weird. I don't know how that got in there. That's a weird one. All right, guys. Thanks for tuning in, and we will see you next week.
See you next week.